Hello and welcome back to this mini-series where we are progressively building a blog application with Django and Bootstrap. If you like, you can check out the previous tutorials. See the description below for a link. In this tutorial, we will be adding a simple comment system to our blog. So this tutorial is aimed at complete beginners. So we go through this step by step. We'll create a model for our new comment system. We'll build a form and have a look at some of the different form options available in Django. And then we'll head over to the view. We'll create some queries, save some data, the data which users enter into the comment system. I will then go through, in addition to this, I will then also go through the Bootstrap code needed to create a simple comment front end so that we can allow users to make comments. So in this project, I'm going to start by downloading the repository from the previous tutorial, creating a simple blog. So by all means, use the git command line. I'm just going to download this. There is a link in the description. So I'm just going to download this zip, extract it to a folder, and then we'll start the project from there. To get this project started, let's just head over to the My Site folder from the project you downloaded. And we're just going to open up the command prompt here and just change the directory to that particular directory. Let's just change that for you. So now we're in the directory, we're going to create a new virtual environment. So obviously you're going to need Python installed. So let's just run the virtual environment. I'm going to add a new folder in our directory here called venv. So that's going to create the virtual environment. So once that's created, I need to actually activate the virtual environment because I'm going to be working within the virtual environment. So I do that by going over to the scripts folder and then activate. So that takes me into the scripts folder and I've activated the virtual environment. You can see now on the left hand side it says venv to indicate that the virtual environment is running. So once you've done that, we're using Django, so pip install and then type in Django. So you're going to need to install Django. I think I've already installed it, or maybe not. So that needs to be installed. Okay, so that takes a couple of seconds. So once that's completed, what we're going to do, just check to make sure we're in the right directory. So the directory we need to be in to run the Django server is the directory that has the, type in dir, the directory that has the manage.py file. So now what I can type in is py for Python, manage.py, and then run server. So that's going to run the server. So if you're successful, it should tell you that the starting development server at, and then the address. So from there, we can actually then go to this address and just make sure that the server is running. So this is the final view, what we're developing. So if you remember from the previous video or previous tutorial, we created a nice little blog with 3 posts. So if we go into the admin area, excuse me, you'll need to type in the username admin and admin to get into the admin area. You can see here that if you go to posts, you can see the posts. There's some data in there. You can add some more if you want to. Okay, so now we're ready to start the project. So everything is working as expected. So let's just now head over to our code editor and we'll open up the project. So I'm just going to use that link to open up the project. That's the URL to this folder here. So with that in place, we can now see we've got the blog app and the My Site app. So the My Site app is the main Django application. And then we built a new app called blog, which holds the blog. So let's head over to the model. So this is the existing model for our database, for our posts. So what we're going to do now is build a comment system. So developing a comment system, we're going to essentially need to have a way of saving the comments. So we're going to create a new table called comments. So this table needs to be linked somehow to the post table, because we need to be able to associate what comments are associated to what post. So that needs to be a factor when we're developing this database. So let's build the new database for our comment system. So underneath the existing database here, we're going to create a new database. We're going to call this comment. So we need to store information about comments that the users enter. So one thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to make a connection to from this table to the post table. So the reason why that is because we want to store the comments inside of this table here, but we need some sort of reference so that we know what comments are associated to what posts. So we're going to create a foreign key. We're going to create a new field called post and then create a new foreign key. So we're going to connect this to the post model, and that's then going to create a connection. So every time we create a new comment, there's going to be an association between that comment and an item in the post table. So other parameters or other fields that we're going to need: a name and email. So our comment system is going to need the user to type in a name of some sort and an email, and then they can type in the actual comment. So we're going to store that too inside of a text field. So once that's done, we're then going to also include a publish field. So here the idea is that when we want to order the comments, we can order the comments by publish date. That creates a simple structure and flow for our comments. Okay, then finally we add status. So here you might want later on to be able to disable some of the comments, or you might want to filter or administrate some of the comments that are inappropriate. So instead of just deleting them, we could put them in some sort of status area, or sorry, we could change the status from true to false. So here, if the status is true, then the comment is live. If the Boolean field is false, then the status is obviously false and the comment won't be shown to the user. So we got that in place. And then finally we add some meta. So here we're just going to add ordering. So we're going to order this by default, the comments by published date. So published. And then finally we need some sort of output, default output. And so we're just going to have comment by and then take the name. Okay, so that's pretty much all that we're going to need to create our comment system. If you've got any questions about any of these fields here, then just let me know in the comments and I'll happily answer them. I appreciate I haven't explained every detail here. So these are all the model types or data types. So we're using email field, a special field to ensure that an appropriate email is inserted into that field. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's head over to the terminal and let's commit that to our database. So here, if you remember from the first tutorial, we're going to type in manage.py and then make migrations. So I've actually already made migrations, I think, on this model. So yours will look slightly different. So once you've done that, we can then actually migrate. So now we're going to commit it to our database. There we go. So now we have updated our database and that should now be available. So what we can now do is just go over to the admin, and whereas we've created the entry here to make the post model available in our admin area, we're now going to extend this to include the comments. So I've gone ahead and just made a few changes here. So we're registering the model post. So we're extending from here the import. So post, so we list from the post the title, status, slug, and author. So we'll see that in the admin area. That's what we're going to label or list on the screen. And we're using the pre-populated field, the slug, as the title. So when we type in the title, it's going to pre-populate the slug field. So that's all to do with the post from the previous tutorial. So here now we're going to register the comment model. So you can see here that in the display we're going to list the post name, email, publish and status. So that's what we're going to see in our list when we view all the comments in the admin section. And then we're going to be able to filter this list by status or publish. Obviously you can change these, but this is a way of defining how we want to maybe filter our list. And then the search fields, we're going to have name, email and content. So when we do a search, we can search those fields for any particular comment. So now that we've registered that, now let's go ahead and run our server. And then just open this up. So let's go back into the admin area. And you can now see we have posts and comments. So if I go into that, you can see filter by, etc. and publish. And we can obviously search and we can add a new comment. So let's go ahead and add a new comment. So here we need to mandatory select a post. Obviously the user won't be doing this, but we can manually add a comment here. So we need to select the post we want to make a comment for. New post, email. We're going to need some sort of actual email here for this to work. And then just a comment, a new comment. There we go. Okay, so we can save that, and you can see now that it has been saved. The published date, email, name, post is being shown here, and that just correlates to what we've just developed. So we said that in the list display we want post, name, email, publish and status. So that's what this here correlates to here, or these views here, or labels. So now that we've done that, we now need to head over to the view and start thinking about how we're going to integrate this within our system so that the user of our website can actually make comments. So in actual fact, before we start developing our view, let's create a new file here called forms. Let's create our forms first. So inside of our blog app, we're going to create a new new file called forms. And let's just quickly develop a simple form. So from Django, we're going to import forms, and then from our models, we're going to need our new models that we created. So which was called comment. I think it was called comments. Yes, we call it. Yeah, we called it comment. Yeah. So now we brought in forms from Django framework, and now we've also included our table, so we can grab the data from that table. So let's make a new class, so obviously lowercase, and then we're going to call this new comment form, and we're going to extend form. Oh, it does that. We're going to extend the form. Okay, so let's make a form. So what we need to do here is just add meta. So we're going to utilize all the built-in functionality within Django to create a form. So we could create a form manually. So actually set out the labels and the inputs. We could do that, but we might make mistakes. For example, we might forget what the names of our model is, or we might not write it properly, etc. So in terms of rapid application development, Django has the facility for us to basically, we just tell it what model we want to use and what fields we want to use, and it will automatically make a form for us. So that's what we're going for in this case. So you don't have to do it this way. This is just one way. So what we need to do to make a form is basically just tell Django what our model is. So we're going to use the comment model. So we brought the comment model in up the top here. So then we just tell it, well, what fields do we want to use? And those fields are going to be generated into inputs in our form. So we're going to have name, we're going to use email, and then finally we also need the content. So these are just fields inside of our content model. So name, email, and content. So now we've got that in place. We're going to add some widgets, because this is going to allow us then to just change some of the formatting. So for example, because I'm using Bootstrap and I don't have direct access to the form, because remember the form is being generated automatically. So there's no way of me, other than injecting some code into the form, of me actually formatting that form in a Bootstrap way. So we use this widget option to add some styling to our form. So I'll just go ahead and paste that in. So here you can see name, emails, and content in the text input or the text area. I add some more attributes. So I'm adding a class like you would do if you're creating a normal div element. You add a class and then you can add something within that class. So here I'm associating or adding a class within the text input, adding this class attribute col sm12, which is obviously a Bootstrap class. So that's a way of kind of controlling this. And again, in the text area, add form control. So again, another kind of Bootstrap class. So there's a way of injecting. And of course, you can read the manual for widgets and see what other things you can add. But hopefully you understand what's happening here. So we're going to use the pre-formatted, or we're going to create the forms automatically using Django forms. We imported our model so that we can capture the data from our model. We then create a new form, and essentially all we do is tell Django what model we want to use, what fields we want to use to make our form, and then the widgets is just additional here. We're just going to add or inject the class into the input forms from the form that Django builds. So I'll point that out when the form is created so you can see where that is injected into the HTML code. So that wraps up the form in this case. So now we can go ahead and start developing our view. So there isn't anything to be demonstrated at this point on the screen. Nothing will have happened at this point. So we can just go ahead now and start thinking about developing this. So before I do that, what I'm going to do is just reconfigure the URLs. If you remember, if I go to my blog here, the root directory, there's nothing here. So I'm going to change the blog and make that the root directory. So if I head back into the code, if you remember, the URLs are going to be placed here in the blog and also in the main package, the URLs here. So what happens is you type something into the URLs, Django captures that. First of all, it looks here in the My Site, the main application, and looks for the URL paths. If it doesn't find anything, we have made a link to include the URLs in the blog app. So there it then looks for the URLs here. So notice that the home URL for the blog is the default here, just nothing at all. So if we go back into the URLs of the main app, you'll see that if you want to get to the blog, we have to type in blog/. So if we remove that and press save, and then go back into our site and refresh, you can now see that everything matches up. So the root directory is now the blog. So we'll do that first. And now let's head back into the code and complete the view. So if you think about how this is going to work, when someone enters the page, so for example, when someone clicks here, obviously it shows the blog entry or the single post. So we want to extend this view to now also include the comments. So we're not going to build a new function. We're just going to extend the single post function, the function that actually gets the single post here to be displayed. We're going to extend that to now also include the comments. So let's just start off fresh, and I'll go through this line by line. So I've removed everything that was in the post single function here, and now I'm going to just run through this line by line. So first of all, because this is the single post function here, we're going to just collect all the information about the post. So that's what we do here. So we get the the post, the single post via the slug, if you remember from the first tutorial, and then we're only getting the posts that are published. So that just basically gets the post information. So that was previously set. So now what we're also going to do is get the comments for this individual post. So again, what we're going to do is filter this out. So we're only going to get comments that are status equal true. So the comment needs to be flagged as true in order for us to display the comment. So we're going to set up a new variable here called user comment equals none. So we'll set that and utilize that shortly. Okay, so someone types into the form their name, their email, and a comment. So that is going to be sent to this function. So what we need to do now is capture whether someone has actually made a comment. So we do that by creating an if statement. So if the request method, so the request is taken into this function. So if the request method equals post, so what's happening here, when we submit the form, we're making a post request. That post request is going to be sent to this function. So we're going to be able to monitor whether the page was requested via post. So we can run an if statement to check that. So if request equals post, so if someone has made a new comment, then we're going to do something. So what are we going to do? So first of all, we're going to create a new variable here called comment form. So new comment form request post. So what we've done here is we collected all the information from the post data and we're putting it into this variable called comment form. So now we're going to check the data to make sure it's valid. So why might it not be valid? So if someone's typed in a wrong email address, for example, a wrong format for an email address, notice in our model we need the email in a certain format. So utilizing this email field here, we're expecting a typical format of an email. So if we don't get that, then we won't be able to save the data. So essentially that's what's happening here, or one of the reasons why we're doing this. So if comment form is valid, so if the data is valid and is going to be able to, and we're going to be able to actually put it in our database, then we're going to then start preparing and saving that data to commit to the database. And you can see here we save that data, but we don't commit yet to the database because we need one more piece of information. So the user, let's try and visualize, the user's typed in their name, their email, and a comment. But now we need to associate that comment to a post. So the post that they're working on currently, we need to capture that information. And then we know what post to save this comment under or associate with. So we also then collect that post information. So user comment.post equals the post that we're currently using. So then what we do is we save all that data to the database using save.save, and then we can now redirect them back to that particular post, and that page will now be updated and will show the new post as being submitted or confirmed and viewable onto the page. Okay, so we're just returning the user back to the page. Okay, so now we've got the else to the if. So if the request method, so if someone does actually make a post, that's what's going to happen. We'll collect the data, make sure it's valid, save the data to a database, send them back to that page, and now they can view the comment. Okay, so if, for example, we run this function, and remember this function will run every time that we go to a new page. So if someone isn't making a post request to this function, so they're just viewing the page, then we want to do something else. So what we want to do is we want to show the comment form. So new comment form. So that's what we need to do. So it's a yellow line at the moment because we've not imported it in, as we also need to import the HTTP response redirect up here. We'll do that in a second. So the comment form is called this. So if we go back to the form, this is what we called new comment form. So we'll import that into the project in a second, but let's just go across this. So what's going to happen when a user enters the page is that we're going to run the form. and make that form available to the page. So once we've done that, we now need to just return all this data back to the page so that we can display it on the page. So we return. So what we return is the post data. So this here is just referring to the post data up here. So if you remember, the first step was to get all the information about the post and put it in this variable here. So we're going to send all that information back to the front end so that we can display it on the screen. Next up is comments. So user comment. So what we're displaying here is we're just sending back the user comment. So here, for example, notice that I created a null variable essentially. So when this function is run, by default, there is no user comment. However, if a user does make a comment, notice that I update the user comment just right here with the information they've entered. So that will then go back into this here. And what I have now is the ability to send that back into my front end. So I can capture that information too. And then we've got comments. So here, for example, I've found all the comments that are associated to this individual post page, and I put it into this variable. So I want to capture that and put it onto the page. So I make that data available to the front end. And then also I want the comment form to be available. So in addition to that, here, I put the comment form, here, I put the comment form in the variable here, and I make that available. So notice that regardless whether they go to this page and they haven't submitted, which case the comment form will be placed in the variable here. So if they have requested, the comment form will also be placed in the variable comment form. So what we return essentially is the post data, the user comment, any other comments that have been made, and the comment form. That's what gets passed back to the front end. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, if I haven't explained it very well, then please leave a question in the comment section. I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. Okay, so now that we had that in place, let's now just add these dependencies. So we're going to also need the HTTP. It was response, wasn't it? Redirect. So we're going to need to incorporate that. And then in addition to that, from the forms, we need to import our form, which was called new comment form. Okay, so that's all now in place. So what we should now have is the ability to create the front end for this application. So all this data is being sent back to the single page. So let's go over to our templates. We should have a single file. Yep. Okay, so now we need to edit this page to include the information from the comments. So far we've got a container. We're centering everything in the middle here. We've got a new column of 8, so that's being centered in the middle. And then we have the title and the content. So it's using the Bootstrap 12 there just to expand across. And if you're wondering, the safe here, so in the content you might want to include some p tags and divs, etc., to display, also to make the display of your post pretty. So we use the safe to not display the HTML, but to actually render the HTML on the page. Right, so now we need to extend this page to include the contents. So here's the breakdown of the additional code that we're going to include. So here we're going to add this comment section underneath the content. So let's go ahead and create a new div with the column MD12 from Bootstrap. So it's going to be full width of this column. So we start off with width. So with comments.count as total comments, we're going to take or count the amount of comments that this post has, and we're going to say total comments, so that would be a number, of the total comments. So it's going to say one comment, for example, and then the total comments. Total comments, pluralize. So what's happening here then is that we're counting how many comments there are, putting the number right here. So one comment, for example. However, if you think about this word here, it says comment. So if it's 0 comment, it should be pluralized, so comments. So what we do here is add an S to the end of comment if the comments equals 0. So we do that by utilizing this pluralize command here. So we add that to total comments. So if the total comments is 0, it's going to display S. If the comments is more than 0, so 1 comment, 2 comment, and so on, then obviously it's just going to say comment. So that's just a simple way of pluralizing items if they're required. So we then end with, so we end that with there. So let's move on to the next statement. Okay, so this next block, so we're going to have a for comment in comments. So what we're going to do here is have a for loop. So for all the comments that we find in comments, we're going to simply loop that out. So when we loop that out, we're going to have the word comment and then the counter, so comment 1. So what we're going to do here is create a for loop counter so that for every time this loop goes round, this is going to go up 1, so we can count how many comments we have. Or for each comment there will be a number and it will be numbered in order. So this is going to say comment and then this case number 1 and then by and then comment name. So that's going to take the information about the author of the comment. So this is going to say comment 1 by whoever. Okay, so on, and then we get the information about the publish date. So we output that, comment.publish. And then we have a nice little line break. Okay, so we finish that by having there are no comments for this post. So if we find that the data, if there is no comments at all, then in actual fact, it's just going to say there are no comments for this post. Okay, so we end this for. So this starts here. So we've got for. So if there is comments, we're going to run this and loop that. Now, if it's empty, if there are no comments in comments, then we're just going to display there are no comments for this post. So there's just a few different loops here. Just have a look at the syntax, have a look at what's going on here. So ideally you are comfortable with the idea of loops using a for loop, for example, and this is just simply how Django will manage it. So make a new comment. So that's going to output all the comments. So now what we want is a section under that, so then we can make a new comment. So this is where we get the form. So we give it an ID. Method is going to be post, if you remember. And now we get the comment form. So comment form as P. So that's going to get the comment form that we created. So let's just go back in the views. Notice that we're passing comment form. So we're passing that data in comment form. Notice we're passing all the comments through this keyword comments. So this is how and why we're using comment in comments, because this comments here is holding all the comments data and this comment form is holding the comment form. So that's going to show the comment form, and then we're going to add a nice little button here and we add some Bootstrap class elements here. So in addition, I didn't mention we've got the CSRF token here. So this is just the template tag, which helps protect us from cross-site request forgeries. Okay, so that pretty much completes the form here. So now what we should have, if we go over to, just make sure the server's turned on, of course. Let's turn this on, run server. So once the server is turned on, head over to the web page. I've got it over here. So if we move down to the bottom here, we can see that I made a comment earlier, if you remember, for this particular post. Now we are running it on the root, so let's go to the root. And you can see now we have everything in place. So one comment 1 by new post, blah, blah, blah. So that's the actual comment that was made. Sorry, this is the comment here that was made. So let's just make a new comment. So new, just call user 1. And let's just try an email. And then just add a new comment. Press submit. So we're redirected, if you remember, to this page. And you can now see I've got a new comment here. And there we go. So let's head over to the admin just to see that in place. Go to posts. Oh, sorry, wrong place. Go to comments. So you can see here that our comment has been made. It's associated to this post. This is the user that made it, their email, the published date, and the status obviously by default is true, so it is shown. So let's have a look at this. And there we go. So before I forget, I did mention that I'd talk more about this, what is called either a magic method or dunder method here. So to explain this, there is a wonderful video here from Real Python, lessons how and when to use the dunder method here. So by all means, have a look at this. This will explain it in great detail, the dunder method here and when to use it and so on. But if you don't want to see that, to summarize, essentially this method here, this dunder method, is being utilized to help label entries or to produce a default output for the model. So here, for example, we had this comment by blah. So that was this dunder method here that's being utilized, and so the default output. So if I were to go into my database and go over to my comments here, you can see that when I go into the comment, it says at the top here, comment by user 1. So it's an identifier for that particular comment. So if I didn't have that in place, there'd just be like a random string here. So it's a way of identifying, probably makes, yeah, hopefully that kind of makes more sense. So for example here, so the default is the name or the title of the post. So if I go back into my code here, you can see that we've got return self title. So the default is just returning the title. There we go. So it just helps you identify this particular data. Okay, so that was a simple example of creating some comments for a blog. Hopefully you enjoyed that. We'll follow this up with many more tutorials as we develop this blog. If you've got any questions, please add them in the comments section. If you've got any comments about the speed, the pace, how much I'm explaining, if you want more explained or if I need to go slower or faster, that would be interesting to get some feedback from you as to whether you enjoyed this tutorial, whether you're able to understand it, and like I said, whether I gave you enough information and so on. Okay, thank you very much.